the computer, and it bothered me because last time we did Bob Dylan and I, born on the same day, a very poetic and incredible session that we had for those that showed up. Before that, we did Dylan Thomas. So we're moving forward, and what we're trying to do here is create a sense of community around the table. We hope more people will show up in person eventually, but the idea is to connect in various ways. And in this poem, Elizabeth Bishop is trying to connect her inner feelings, and in a sense, she's trying to distance herself from what the deep pain that she feels, and we'll see how it works. So I'm going to arbitrarily call on, see here, Dave, why don't you read the first stanza, The Art of Losing. Wait a second, let me pull it up on the screen. I'm sorry, guys. Let me share a screen on this. Let me get it. Share screen. Let's see. Meetings, phone, team chat. Let's get rid of this. Sorry for the delay, but we will get there. Okay. Should be on the screen now. Share. Okay, it should be up there. Okay, Dave, why don't you go ahead now? Everybody have it?
One Art by Elizabeth Bishop. The art of losing isn't hard to master. So many things seem filled with the intent to be lost that their loss is no disaster.
Okay. Any comments, Dave? I mean, I know I sent you the poem in advance. If you have any comments, great. Otherwise, we won't spend too much time on it, but any comments about this? Yeah.
I had the feeling of, the Buddhist notion of impermanence, where you distance yourself. There's this detachment because of the impermanence of
Very
things.
good. Yeah, I sense that too. It's taking a very lighthearted approach to losing is an everyday thing. We all lose things. We get into our senior years, we misplace our wallets, misplace our keys. And so she's it's a matter of fact. Like you say, Dave, she's aloof from what's happening. It's a matter of fact. Okay. All right. So let's go on to, now I have Galaxy S10 asked to unmute. Could you unmute Galaxy S10? Are you there? As to unmute. All right. Galaxy, you there? Okay. Gil Herman, welcome, Gil. So
thank you.
Yeah, welcome.
Okay.
Yeah.
Lose something every day, except the fluster of lost door keys, the hour badly spent. The art of being lost isn't hard to master.
Oh, okay, so what are we talking about here, Gil? I'm particularly call attention to the accept the fluster. What is she trying to do here?
Well, as you said before, this occurs in daily life. We lose things, but also the hour badly spent, that stands out to me.
Say that again. I'm sorry.
The hour badly spent.
The
hour badly spent.
Okay. The hour badly spent. Yeah, gotcha. It wasn't clear. Now it is. Yeah, I mean, how many projects do we start? Do we waste time, turn on a TV program when we have more important stuff to do, prepare for, read Elizabeth Bishop's poem, try to make haste of it. I mean, we just kill time every day, and and we just accept it. We accept the fluster, we accept the anxiety, confused state. I mean, we're confused, but somehow we go on, and we learn to master these situations. Okay, so that's great. Let's continue here. Stuart is right next to me here. Stuart, why don't you continue?
Then practice losing further, losing faster, places and names and where it was you meant to travel. None of these will bring disaster.
Okay, so Stuart, okay, so what is she doing here?
Well,
Mm.
I was talking about the lost opportunities, but these can be recovered, and maybe I'm, reading, going further into the end of it, but I get the impression that she's implying that there are also losses of memories that you are likely to mourn over.
Perfect, yeah,
memories.
places, names, I mean, exactly, sure. And she's kind of speeding it up. Come on, let's, the more we practice this, the more we kind of get used to, to our shortcomings. And, no big deal. You just keep on going. Eventually we'll remember the name, we'll remember the place, we'll catch up with travel, and life will go on. Okay. Who would like to continue that hasn't read? I'm asking Galaxy S10 if you can unmute. We'd like to include you in there. Otherwise, I'll do one as it's my turn. Everybody has done one. All right, so I lost my mother's watch, and look, my last or next to last of 3 loved houses went. The art of losing isn't hard to master. Oh, now she's getting a little bit more personal. It's her mother. She lost her mother. Her mother went insane, and she's 5 years old. And in the movie, if you can watch this movie, I warn you, it's sexually very permissive because she had a relationship.
Richard, what's the name of the movie?
Oh gosh, go on. I just saw it. Something about.
Maybe it'll come back to you later.
Yeah, they'll come back to me. It's very easy to find. It's free. It's on Tubi. We'll give it to you free. Put up a few commercials, but it's a great movie. Very sensitively done, and the relationship she has with the architect is very sensitively done. Nothing overt. A lot of suggestive relationship, and she comes across a very shy woman. Very shy, unsure of herself, and the architect is very strong, very male-oriented, very positive person. And what happens, quite frankly, is I'll jump ahead. The architect comes up to New York in they're living together 16 years and outside of Rio, beautiful estate home. The architect builds her this beautiful home up on the mountain where she can write her poetry. And then Elizabeth wants to go back to New York. She has connections, publishing, whatever. And the friend starts to really freak out and starts losing her architectural mojo. She gets on drugs. She takes a plane up to New York. She's heavily drugged and she can't handle it. She ODs and she dies 3 days later. So keep that in mind as we go on here. So she says she lost her 3 loved houses. Well, she lost the house in Rio, the beautiful home that her architect built for her. She lost the house. She grew up in Worcester, Massachusetts. She lost the house up in Nova Scotia. So it's getting very personal now, so how is she going to deal with this? Okay, so let me pull this down a little bit. Go on. We're back to Dave. I'm sorry, Moshe, why don't you pick up? Moshe, we're on to I lost 2 cities, that one. Yeah.
Sorry about my trying to connect and unsuccessfully. The name of the movie is Reaching for the Moon.
Yes, there you go, Reaching for the Moon. Did you see it, Moshe?
No, I just read
Looked
a
it
little
up,
bit
yeah.
about it, but didn't watch it. And where should I start, Richard?
Okay, you'll start with I lost two cities. I'm
I
sorry.
lost two cities, lovely ones, and Vaster, some real realms I owned, two rivers, a continent. I missed them, but it wasn't a disaster.
Okay.
Even, yes.
Yeah, so go ahead, Moshe, what is your, I know you kind of came in kind of in the middle here, but yeah, we're
Yeah,
kind of,
I apologize again. I don't know, my computer is playing tricks. I
Oh.
lost two cities, lovely ones, and Vaster, some realms I owned, two rivers, a continent. I missed them, but it wasn't a disaster. So she had, what I understand, she had many losses that she counts here. But with all that in mind, she doesn't think it was a fatal blow or something like that. She somehow can cope with that. She can deal with that, although I guess it's very painful because they were so beautiful and so nice, and some realms I owned. I mean, she had very beautiful things, but still she can deal with that. That's how I understand it.
yeah, she grew up in a very wealthy environment. Her relatives up in Nova Scotia, very wealthy grandparents. I think it was on the paternal side. And she grew up in tremendous comfort. And when you see the movie, if you choose to see it, I watched half of it. There's so much good video on this by various professors, and the librarian at Vassar College, which she attended, had a great 10-minute lecture.
Yes,
I didn't have a chance to watch the whole movie, but it's sad. It's a very sad movie, and she's dealing. If you missed this part of it, Mike, she revised this poem like 17 revisions that the Vassar College Library has. So she really worked on this, and she spent only 3 weeks on this one. Usually she spends a month, 2 or 3 months working on a poem. But this one of all of 6 stanzas, she spent like 3 weeks on it, many revisions. And, you know, the impression I get is that, you know, there's a tremendous amount of emotion that she is desperately trying to control. You know, we all deal with tremendous losses. I've had very painful losses in my life, and you know, I have to deal with it. And we're going to take a look at the Tanakh very shortly, and we'll see what the prescription is in Genesis for dealing with emotion. Here she's bottling it up. You know, it's like one of the songs, it's coming back to me, but, you know, we have our memories bottled up in a very compact and hold it in, very stiff upper lip, New England style. This is the impression I'm getting, that she is stiff upper lip, New England, you're a WASP. She's a definite WASP. White Anglo-Saxon Protestant, and she's trying to be cool. I mean, at this point, she's warming up because she's talking about the cities that she's lived in. She loved living down in outside of Rio. She loved living in Worcester, Massachusetts. She loved living in Nova Scotia, and continents. She's lived in various continents, and she misses them. Okay, so now we get to the last one, and we're up to we're back to Gil. All right, Gil. Why don't you complete it, and then we can have a chance to tie this into whatever we need to tie it into. Go ahead. Gil, I can't hear you. You need to mute yourself.
Mute.
unmute.
Okay, yeah, unmute yourself. I'm sorry. Unmute. Go ahead. All right.
No, he still didn't do it.
Yeah, Gil, you need to unmute.
I thought I did.
There-
Okay.
I can hear you now. I can hear you.
Okay, sorry.
Yeah.
Even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love, I shan't have lied. It's evident the art of losing is not too hard to master, though it may look like, write it, like disaster.
Okay. So, this is the climax. This is the climax, Gil. And what do we make of it? Does she lose her cool? I mean, is she convincing to us that a gesture, a simple, light, joking voice, this lighthearted, like Dave said at the beginning, she's very aloof. She's looking at this, it's like watching a Rembrandt, go to the Met and see a great Rembrandt painting. It's all on the outside and, nothing internal. It's, you're just kind of watching the paint strokes and and you're trying to imitate the poem, the painter. How does this differ? This last quatrain, notice it's 4 lines, the others are 3 lines. And the other thing I want to point out is that here you have lines running into each other. The sentence does not end with a period, unlike most of the other terzain, the 3-line stanzas. Here you've got even losing you, the joking voice, a gesture I love. I mean, it's something running into each other. I shan't have lied. Okay, so what does she mean by shan't have lied? Is she lying to us all the way through here? Is she playing us? Is she trying to make light of a situation and she's really burning up inside? Any comments?
Maybe she's not lying so much to us as to herself.
Yeah,
Very good. Excellent. Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
This is a disaster for her.
It is a disaster,
Yeah,
joking voice, the gesture, I love. I mean, the light, flippant. It's flippant. I recommend a fantastic video that I recorded. It's on station WNYE, which is a New York public station, if you're able to get it. But this poem was discussed by some of the great feminists of our generation. Katie Couric, who lost her husband, as you know, age 42. Sherry, the one who ran Meta, who ran Facebook. Sherry Scheinberg, she lost her husband he was on a treadmill. And suddenly she took a nap and then he collapsed and he died on her. So, and they discussed this poem. And it was really a tremendous experience of seeing people who are relating to experiences that they still continue to suffer and pain, and to be able to look at the poem and say, look, the way she deals with it is amazing. How she controls it. This is really controlled literature, controlled, seamless. She's keeping everything tight. The rhyming pattern, the disaster and faster and fluster and master, and spent time barely spent. She lived on a continent. She's playing with words. And then when she finally gets to this quatrain, the last 4 lines, I think she really lets it out. I mean, no, I can't lie. I couldn't master this thing, even though she says she can. Like Stewart says, she has to admit to herself that she's been one-upped. She's been one-upped by life, and that's very painful to admit. And I find this really a great experience, having watch the movie and get your comments and for us to go ahead.
Richard,
Yeah.
Richard, sorry I missed it. In what year was this poem?
Okay, this poem, that's a good point. I must admit ignorance on that. Let me explain to you that this poem was written after her partner had died. I think this poem was written 3 years before she passed away. Now, she lived from 1911 to 1979, I think about 76. Why am I saying that? Because her friend came up to New York in 67. I have the date down here. I wrote it down on one of my, yeah. She came, September 19th, 1967 is when her architect friend came up to rescue the relationship. Okay, and she quickly overdoses and dies. So Elizabeth is dealing with this pain for approximately 9 years. So it's 3 years before she died. Elizabeth lives beyond this poem. I'm sorry, another 3 years beyond this poem, and beyond the death of her roommate, of her lover, another 12 years. So you get some idea of the perspective, how long it's taken her to deal with this pain and suffering. And she became a drinker. Well, welcome. Okay, Phyllis showed up. We have a surprise visitor. Okay, that's great. Yeah, so she's dealing with pain, and I think it's a very successful poem. Any comments? I mean, please feel free to comment on this. I'm trying to rush us, but I do have a lot of good Tanakh that I think we can refer to. And Phyllis is joining me. She has won the Torah Award here from the synagogue. She is she's a lover of Torah, so I'm really glad she showed up, and she'll be able to make comments. Go ahead. Anybody want to comment about the poem before we transition to Genesis? Yeah.
Hi.
Okay. Good question. Wait. 1 second. Let Dave. Phyllis asked, why is it called One Art? But Dave, go ahead. You have a comment.
Okay, you want me to wait for the answer on? Well, how
No,
much?
go ahead, Dave. No. Phyllis, well, we're going to deal with her answer after your comment. Go ahead.
How much of this is things in life make no sense? And there's no, and so we try to have a cause and effect. In other words, life is complex, and maybe the death of her friend made no sense. We hear of people who pass at a very young age, from an accident or trauma. And we say, well, this doesn't make sense. And there's no particular time limit on mourning, even though it seems in the Jewish religion, we say we mourn for a year. We go to shul and we every day for those who've been daven, for those who passed, say
Kaddish, yeah, say Kaddish, sure.
Kaddish. But that doesn't mean you can unspool this in 1 year. It may take longer for you to systematically analyze what's going on here, that life makes no sense.
I think it's an excellent observation that, we don't see the full picture of the loss and deal with it until many years go by. And then we kind of understand some of it. We can deal with it. It's hard to deal with a lot of things. And so many people, I'm thinking of the Holocaust, so many people have closed that part of their life off almost completely. And then maybe at some point they open up to their grandchild before they pass on, in order to let the grandchild know what the reality was, the suffering and the pain that they experienced, in the camps and the marches, the forced death marches. But excellent observation. Excellent.
I shan't have lied. I mean, I just, this is it, but I can't make any sense to the whole thing.
Yeah, I think that's it. I mean, she had so much thrust on her at such an early age. Imagine, never knowing her father, her mother going insane in front of her. You watch that movie, you'll see what I mean. It's very, very traumatic for this 5-year-old. And she relives it. You're reliving these experiences throughout your whole life. And I think that's what she's going through here. She's giving you at 3 years before her end of her life, and she's in her 60s, 65. She's telling you this is what it's leading up to. And I can't lie to you. I'm still dealing with it. No joke anymore. My gesture of love wasn't a gesture. That's an understated word, a gesture I love. I mean, it's very painful dealing with these things, and we'll see very shortly. Now, Phyllis asked a great
Yeah,
question.
I have an idea.
Yeah.
what-
Go ahead,
but-
Phyllis. The question is, why is it given that term one art? Go ahead.
The only thing I could think of is that this was a sure thing for her. This is the one thing that she can say she actually accomplished. And maybe going forward, this is a lesson to all of us that we all experience loss in our lifetime. And this is a sure thing because everybody does and everybody will. And this is the one art that there's no, it's unmistakable. You know, you can't say, I did this, or I did this, or I didn't do this, or I did accomplish this. Yes, you accomplished that one art. You've lost things along the way in your life. And we're all equal on that. We've lost.
You make a great point. You know, we're constantly losing things. You know, we're born, and we're losing our innocence from, you know, from early age. We lose that ability just to see things without guilt and without remorse, you know, with open eyes. And life is one sure progression to the other life. Let's face it, we're all going to meet it sometime or other, and here she's meeting it. I mean, I'm taking all of my horrific experience and I'm making it into a work of art, so I can almost enjoy it. There's an expression that that poetry is something that you experience pain cheerfully. Many poets, I think it was, I forget, I heard it quoted this morning. The job of the poet is to show silence. Octavia Paz. Yeah, now poetry is really dealt with in dealing with silences, you know, dealing with all of these delicate feelings, and so she's creating a work of art from something that it's a mishmash. It's painful, you know, it's bloody stuff, and she's elevated it, you know, where she can now look at it and deal with it painfully. Go ahead.
Then perhaps the art she's referring to is that she has survived these tragic experiences, that they didn't allow these experiences to destroy her totally.
It says it may look like disaster.
It may look like disaster, but you know. But she writes it. She says, "I got to write it." I mean, disaster is always around the corner. You know, where, you know, it's there, and we have to be prepared to encounter, you know, the downs of life, the ups of life, and the downs of life, and the more experiences that you have of overcoming the downs of life, the happier, the cheerier you can be with, and deal in silence, you know, and accept it.
It's a downer, this poem. I'm just curious, did she write
Phil-
anything that was?
Okay, Phyllis says it's a downer. Any comments on that? I mean, you know, she did. Yeah, I mean, she's written 101 poems. There are some lighter poems. This poem is making light. You hit on the spot. It's making light of a very heavy turmoil that she's experienced, and she does it in a way that we can all relate to it, because we all have suffered tragedies, and we don't want to talk about it. You know, we'd rather, you know, change the subject, move on to the next thing.
When I look at this, I say, wow, my troubles are much less than this.
Mm.
But this is like the top of the pile.
I mean, it piled up on her. I mean, she's an innocent little girl, and she never knew her parents, and see her mother dragged away with shouting and screaming, and, you know, go to an asylum.
Richard,
Yeah, go ahead.
do you think that this is or anyone, a love poem to this woman? Who
Good
she
question. Good question. A love, she had a relationship, 16 years, a lesbian relationship with a famous architect out of Rio de Janeiro. Is it a love poem, an
In
ode?
other words,
uh,
it's easy to lose your keys.
Yeah,
As we get older, the one good thing about losing your memory, it gives you one less thing to do during the day. But she builds up to the fact that this is not just losing my keys, I lost the love of my life.
it is. It's an ode, if you will. It's an ode in a way to
Think,
the
Am I,
one.
am I reaching too far? I mean,
Yeah, no, because 16 years is a long time. It wasn't as if this was a one-night stand, as we say. They had a loving relationship. It's very tenderly, the movie, if you choose to see it, Over the Moon, it's very tender. It's very, someone compared it to Out of Africa, the scenes, the beautiful scenes of Brazilian, the mountainside outside of Rio, and the beautiful home that this architect is living in, and the beautiful home that she constructs for Elizabeth as her art studio, and the pain that Elizabeth brought upon her roommate. Her roommate from Vassar invites her to come and spend a little time because they've been very close together. Haven't had a relationship other than platonic, and she invites Elizabeth to come down to Rio and experience the lush life that she has. And this friend is trying to adopt a child with the architect, and it's not happening. And then Elizabeth shows up, and the architect suddenly falls in love with this poet, this great artist. She's read her poetry, and she just adores her. And it breaks up the relationship with her Vassar friend. And yet the Vassar friend stays. I mean, it's a very complicated relationship, and very, very painful for her to see her friend have to stay on because they both love the same woman. I can't tell you what the relationship was. They don't explore it in great depth, but you can only imagine what happened. So yes, Dave, this is a tribute to her 16-year loving relationship, probably the only solid person that she could love continuously. And it was an up and down relationship. You could see that in the movie. Okay, I want to make a transition to Genesis, okay, if you'll allow me to, because it's been, okay, I'm going to post now I've got to get rid of this. Come on, get rid of this little box here. All right, so what do I have this? Well, all right, can everybody see what I posted? All right. All right, it should be up on your screen now.
Try and click outside the box, maybe it'll go.
Yeah, now there's a box up. Do you guys see this box, favorites? Is
Yes.
that coming up? Okay, I'm trying to get rid of that.
Try and click outside the box.
Yeah, can you see outside the box? Okay, can you see okay, so we're in the portion of Chaya Sarah, and I'm starting here with the first line, Vayhi Chaya Sarah me'ar shana v'esrim shana v'sheva shanim shnei Chaya Sarah. So we know Sarah's lifetime is 127 years. She's the only matriarch whose lifespan we know, and there's a commentary. Why is the word life in Hebrew, the Shana, constantly mentioned? And Rashi, one of the great commentaries, says that when she died at age 127, she was as beautiful as she was at Phyllis knows Phyllis knows. Okay, she was as beautiful as she was when she was 20. Okay, so she mirrored at 127 the righteousness that she had when Sarah met her, the beauty and the righteousness that she had, that inspired everybody to want to have her, okay, as a mate. Okay, all right. And the next one, Batamat Sarah B'Kiryat Arba Hebron Be'eretz Canaan Vayo Avraham Nispod Levichta. Now we have the paradigm of Judaism's take on loss, on grief, okay? So we know that 99, is that when he wed Sarah? Phyllis, I could be off here. What am I thinking of? Yeah, I think it's 99. He had to wait. I guess it was to have a child at 99. Yeah, to have Isaac. Okay, but in any case, what we're talking about here is that Sarah died in this town called Kiryat Arba, and which near Hebron today. Okay, and Kiryat Arba is refers to a town of 4, and there's a reference here to the cave of Machpelah. This is where the matriarchs and the patriarchs are buried in Hebron, okay? And the word Machpelah is from the word kaful, as you know, means double. The couples, that the couples are married there. And we're going to see very shortly that there's one, they're buried there. I'm married there. They're buried there, right? And we'll see that there's one matriarch, Rachel, who's not buried there. And then we're going to come up to that in a short time. Okay, so we have Abraham rose from beside his bed. Okay. I'm sorry. The number 2 is Sarah dies in land, and Abraham proceeded to mourn for Sarah and to bewail her. So someone asked me, why is there a small chaf there? Do you see that? Okay. Do you see that the last word on my cursor is over it? The word is livachta, which means to cry, to bewail. Livkota. Okay. So why is there a small chaf? Anybody have an idea? So the word means to cry, to bewail. Now the word chaf, the gematria, the number that represents is 20. And so interpreters say that refers to Sarah, who was 20, beautiful, and when she was 120, she's beautiful. So that's a reference to her age, that she maintained this beauty. Okay, now what other interpretations do we have on this crying? And notice that unlike Elizabeth Bishop's poem, there's very little mention of crying, of bewailing. It's all pent-up feeling. It's taking it lightly. But here, you know, the paradigm is let it all out, cry. And the word cry is emphasized very much. We have to really see what the interpretation is. So that's one. Now, the other interpretations of that, the rabbis say that, well, yeah, but that's Rachel. We're talking about Sarah now. We're talking about Sarah. Okay, we're getting ahead. Very good. We will talk about Rachel in a few minutes. Okay, well, we will get there. Okay, so the rabbis say that Abraham had another daughter. Her name was Bachol, and she died the same time as Sarah. Okay, and if you take away the chaf in that word, that very small letter, you're left with base tough hay, which is the word daughter. So there is a remez, a hint to the fact that Abraham's sorrow was not only for Sarah, for Sarah, but for his other daughter. We don't know where she is, but again, this is midrash. This is rabbinic interpretation that I'm throwing in here. Okay. Now there is a third interpretation for why we have a small chaf, and this one really appeals to me. It's the idea that if a great person passes away, whoever that person is, whether it's Queen Elizabeth recently, I mean, the world sobbed and cried for her. The Pope, hundreds of millions of Catholics cried. So when a great person of virtue passes away, and the rabbis use the word kosher, somebody who is really righteous, and you do not cry, you are really belittling yourself. You are showing how insensitive you are. So when someone of great stature cries, and certainly our beloved, if you're with a mate for many, many years and you lose that mate, as Elizabeth did, you should let it all out. That's what they're saying. Don't hold it in. Hold it in is really belittling that person, belittling yourself, and let it all out. And we should keep this in mind, comparison to the one art. I mean, the art of Judaism is the art of really compassion. You know, God, we keep saying God is God is strict justice, but he is compassionate. I mean, and we like that. We like the idea of a God of compassion. Moshe, any comments you want to make on these?
Yes, quickly. It's a very interesting story. First of all, it's a little ironic that the parasha, the portion, is called Chayei Sarah, and it starts with Sarah dying.
Yes.
You know, there is some irony in that, but anyway, there is a whole story about Abraham buying that property
Yes.
later.
I wish
The
I could get
property
into that. Yes.
from Ephron Hittite.
Yes.
So we can maybe once even make an entire meeting about what is it with the purchasing of this land, portion of land, and the cave. And he, just one word, Abraham didn't want to get it as a present.
Yes.
He wanted it to be paid. So it
Yes.
is like it's written in the archives, or I don't know how it was then, that it belongs to his family, because in those days families, usually prominent families, had their burial mausoleum or whatever, a cave for the family and the whole generation, and he wanted it to be there. But
Yes.
I don't want to go further into that.
No, I'm glad you raised it. I did research on that. I knew that would take us another direction. But
Yes.
My takeaway is that he offered a tremendous amount of money and was willing to pay it. 500 shekels is, it's like
400.
But it was 5,000, was it? But in any case, Ephron asked a tremendous amount of money, and Abraham doesn't even quibble. Why? Because he did not want to take it as a gift. Ephron was ready to give it to because it was a pagan culture, and the land and the cave would have belonged to Ephron, and he could have reclaimed it at any time. So the paradigm is that we believe in family plots. My ancestors have a huge plot in Elmont, New Jersey, where they came over from the Ukraine, and there must be 100 families that came from that Kamenets-Podolsk, and that's their property. They own it outright. And my parents bought another piece of property up in Westchester for our family, the next generation. So owning land and respecting the dead and burying them is very important, but I'm glad you mentioned it because it is important. We have a few minutes left, and
I don't know, as a Torah example of this poem.
I want to contrast it.
I'm going to use different contrasts.
Yeah, I'm trying to contrast.
Because I don't see this as a loss. And then Sarah died. Yeah, it was a loss to Abraham. Naturally, whenever the wife dies, but there are more, I think, stronger losses to use as an example.
There are.
I would, for example, use the Yaakov loss of Rachel.
I'm coming there.
I would
Give me a chance to come there.
I would and son Yosef. I would have even used Zipporah's loss of Moshe, all the years that he spent away from her.
Mm-hmm.
He was taken as a baby, and she didn't get any pleasure from all the years he was growing up in Israel. There were so many other.
There were other losses. I mean, I'm just taking it as a paradigm.
Perhaps not to Yochebed, support his wife, but to Yochebed, his mother. I mean,
I meant his mother.
his mother, right?
Mother,
Right.
yeah.
Zipporah was his
I meant
wife.
Yochebed.
Yeah.
Sorry.
Okay.
Yeah,
we're going to transition now
Thank you.
with Phyllis's prompting. I put up Genesis 35. We're going to talk about Jacob's wife Rachel. We know he had Leah, and Rachel was the woman he worked an extra 7 years for, and she produced Joseph for him, great prophet Joseph, and she also produced Benjamin. Okay, so now I put up Genesis 35, and I want to talk about the loss of Rachel. Now, what's happening here? I'm in 16. Vayasum beit el vayiod kivrat haaretz lavo Ephrata vateled Rachel vatakesh biladata. So they set out from Bethel, but they were still some distance short of Ephrat, because we're very close to Bethlehem, where the cave of Machpelah is, where all of our patriarchs and matriarchs are buried. So this is where Rachel dies in childbirth, very close to Bethlehem, okay? And she had a hard labor, okay? Vayihi behikshota b'ledata v'tomer la hamayaledet al tura ki gamze lach ben. So when her labor was at its hardest, the midwife said to her, "Have no fear, for it is another boy for you." Now you know that her sister Leah outshone her many more children of Jacob from Leah, but and then we continue, and I'll read in English in the interest of time. But as she breathed her last, but Seit Nafsha, her nefesh was going out of her, for she was dying, she named him Ben Oni. Now, Ben Oni means son of my sorrow, my suffering. Okay, the Aviv Karala Benjamin, but his father Jacob named him Benjamin, and Benjamin means son of my right hand. So basically, we know Reuben was the first son, and Benjamin was the last son. So he's the last son, son of my right hand. So he's in Jacob's good favor. Vatamet Rachel vatikaber b'derech Ephrata hi Beit Lechem. Rachel dies on the spot, and she's buried right there on the road to Ephrat, which is very close to Bethlehem, where the cave is. Now, the obvious question is, why does not Jacob take her and put her into the cave where all of the other patriarchs and the matriarchs are? So that's what we're dealing with here. I know Phyllis knows the answer. And Phyllis knows the because Rachel. Okay, let me pull up Jeremiah here, because Jeremiah gives us the answer. Jeremiah 31:16. Okay, now we know Jeremiah was the prophet of Jeremiah. He is the one that's urging Jerusalemites to mend their ways, because destruction of the temple is on its way, and the Jews are sinning. They're not performing the correct rites in the temple. They're cheating each other. They're not performing the sacrifices correctly. They're desecrating the Sabbath. They're desecrating, bringing in foreign women into the temple, God forbid. But in any case, he says to them, that's it, guys, it's the end. And we know that the temple is destroyed, and we know that Jeremiah is for a while incarcerated because he is speaking against the kingdom, trying to take down the kingdom, getting people to mend their ways. But in any case, it says here that Jeremiah is telling the Israelites, he said, you may be in going to exile. Okay, Ko Amar Adonai, thus said the Lord, restrain your voice from weeping. Hey, don't weep too much. Your eyes from shedding tears. Okay. Now, I should have really prefaced this by the prior, sentence, which says, thus said the Lord, a cry is heard in Ramah, wailing, bitter weeping, Rachel weeping for her children. She refuses to,
רחל מבכה על בניה.
yeah, that she is weeping al baneha. She's weeping. Now, why is Jeremiah referring to this? Why is he referring to this? Because God in his infinite wisdom knew how much Rachel suffered, okay, and losing in childbirth her second child. And he said, look, you know what it means to weep and to suffer. I am going to keep you along this path. The path that she died on, the path to Bethlehem, is the path of exile to Babylon. When the temple was destroyed, hundreds of thousands of Jews passed by her grave. And as they passed by, God positioned Rachel in order to show her sorrow. This is all spiritual. It's all metaphorical, of course. But to show her sorrow for all of these exiled people, that their gorgeous temple, the temple was destroyed, and that they're going, and she's weeping for them. Now, what I find really beautiful about this, and Moshe will understand this, that God is telling Rachel to restrain your voice from weeping. Now, Rachel wants to weep because she has been through so much suffering. He says, because I'm going to return these people, there is a reward for your labor. They're going to return back to the enemy's land. So I find it fascinating that God turns this opportunity as a way of giving comfort. We know that's one of the attributes of God is rachamim, compassion. And so God is turning to Rachel, cool it, let me bear some of this. I mean, they're my people, and I've got to bear the pain and suffering of having to see my people go into exile for 2 times. This is happening, and go back, find some peace and freedom. But no, she is offering comfort, and this is Jeremiah. Jeremiah was a great prophet. He was a great prophet. He has his own book of prophecy, and so this kind of brings us kind of in a way full circle of the Judaic approach to pain and suffering, that we let it out, that we do. A person who has lost a close relative, and then that relative is not buried, that person is commanded not to say the prayers, not to put on the tefillin, don't have to pray. And then the week of Shiva, we sit, and we get comfort, and I find that very, very in a sense comforting to have that, know that we have that in our tradition, and to get back to Elizabeth Bishop, what comfort do we see that she has had in her dealing with all of the pain and suffering? I throw that out to you guys.
She had something.
What did she have?
She had a lot of things. She ended up not having them, but she did have an opportunity to have them. And it's more.
But specifically, what did she have?
It's more than you can say about a lot of people. There are a lot of people who haven't had any of this.
Well, what you're trying to say in a sense is
She
that
had an opportunity.
she had an opportunity to be one of the most creative voices in a generation. And this poem is anthologized all over, and other poetry, and she does have some lighter poetry.
No,
but
no,
she-
I'm saying
but-
she had all these things she talked about. They were part of her life. She had an opportunity to experience them.
She experienced, but
Although she
where is
lost
the
them.
compassion? That's what I'm saying.
What do you
The
mean?
compassion, rachamim. We're talking about God giving compassion to even Rachel. He's saying, Rachel, don't weep so much. Don't worry. I'm in charge. These people will come back to me. They're constantly sinning. They're constantly in exile. We're in exile here around the world, whatever. But but Israel will be our focal point. We're gonna get back to Israel somehow, some way. Israel will keep us together. But Dave wants to say something. Go ahead.
May I don't mean to interrupt.
No, that's what you're here for, Dave.
God took 7 days to create the world. But then he told us to build a community. And building a community takes a long time. And we have to control our needs, which were various needs during that building stage. And that helps us get through these kinds of difficult things. So he's saying that we have a community, and that's important to our people who will come and go. And what's interesting to me is that Jacob buried Rachel in the desert, I think, and then he moved on. He didn't stop and for a Shiva period. He
No,
didn't,
there's no mention of Shiva, no.
didn't stop to mourn.
Well, we do have a mention of that, Abraham gave a hesped. A hesped is
Right.
a eulogy. Abraham did eulogize, so we do have that as a paradigm.
But but that's interesting to me.
But you're right. I mean, Jacob's life was one of so much suffering and pain. It's hard to encapsulate his life. I mean,
But the community helps us deal with things and
agreed.
have a community.
Agreed. Yeah. Yeah. You don't get that sense of community with Elizabeth. Was a very private person. I hope you guys will see some of the movie as I have, and you'll see that she's very. What was it? Over the Moon, Moshe. What was the movie you mentioned?
Reaching for the moon.
Reaching for the Moon. Yeah, highly recommended. Very sensitively done, and she's very aloof person. She is aloof. Something that we can't say for Abraham. Abraham was very much. He opened up his tent to people. He wanted people to come in. He was constantly reaching out to people.
But Richard, it was a different world than today. So it's a different society, a
Sure.
different world, and I don't think we can compare them.
Yeah, but if nothing else, 5 years of teaching some of the finest literature in the world is that we have the ability to reach out to other people. We have the
Yes.
ability to reach out and help other people, gain understanding. Thank you for coming, Phyllis.
But
Yeah.
love,
Thank you
but
for coming.
love and loss as a result of grief.
Welcome. Yeah.
Love and loss and grief as a result of loss has always been with us.
We will always have that, David. Yeah. We'll always have grief. And that's the reason we have in Jewish religion, we have the Yortzeit. Every year we traditionally light a candle for our loved one. We say Kaddish. Many people go to synagogue and say Kaddish that day. We give charity in memory of dear one. We want to continue building a future for our people, giving charity to various institutions. We want to carry on. Elizabeth didn't have any children. She had no children. Her girlfriend had a child in the movie. You'll see that. Girlfriend wanted to keep, she couldn't have children herself, but she has a child. It's very painful for that girlfriend to have the child and yet have her best friend as a lover, to have a mutual lover, so to speak. It's very painful. And David, you're right. We have community. We have what's called a community. And the synagogues serve a very important function, and we get a lot of comfort, but coming together as a class like this makes all the hours of that I put in worthwhile. And Stuart has not missed a session in person, and I look forward to you guys coming again. Zoom. If you have any suggestions, you got my email. Please. If there's any.
When is the next meeting day?
I have it.
Richard?
It's usually the middle of the month. It's right after Pesach. I know Passover is the early part of the month. It's like April 17th. It's the middle. I don't have it. I will email it to you.
Okay.
Yeah. It's I will email it to you.
So it's always Wednesdays in the middle of the
This
month.
yeah, and you're on my mailing list, and
Yeah,
I,
okay.
but-
Thank you, Richard.
yeah, I want to put, Gil, if you'll, send me your email, I'll put you on the mailing list and, and I do prepare, study guides in advance. This one I didn't do, but the other ones I have study guides that I put a lot of time into it. So you have something in advance and you can do further reading or whatever. But if you'd be so kind to email me,
I sent you my email via chat.
by, excuse me?
The chat.
Oh, the chat. Okay, I'll take a look at the chat. Okay, appreciate that. Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank
Yes,
you.
yes.
Toda rabba, Richard.
Listen, my pleasure. I really enjoy this. Keep coming,
Toda
guys.
for the invitation. Thank you very much and see you
And-
next time.
Whenever